Jill here with Sirius Dallas Moon. This is Mercury Hour, Mercury Day. And the ascendant is ruled by Mars, applying to Chiron on the 22nd degree of Aries. And I said about this Chiron that this is very unique. Usually a planet doesn't, or an asteroid doesn't go 4 times on a degree. But Chiron does this time, and this is the 22nd degree, which is to do with to kill or be killed. Now it's ruled by Mars, and Mars is also ruling the moon that's applying to oppose Uranus and conjoin Black Moon Lilith. And this is kind of a sequel. Now, prepare. Mars is in Saturn sign. If I started recording, it's probably going to be going to have a duration. Although the moon is decreasing, so we are in a completion cycle, and with the moon conjoining Lilith and opposing Uranus, it sparks the question about rebellion. Because at the core of both Lilith in Scorpio and Uranus in Taurus is something that is beyond the behavior. This is the decan of spirit and matter. It's also the decan of Beta Persei in Taurus. And let me just check that she's not minima today. Or maybe she is. And with Beta Persei, there is no, how should I say that? There is nothing that can Beta Persei does tend to challenge us. Even if we do work with Beta Persei, it tends to challenge us from the core. Okay, think about a woman that always wanted, let's say a woman is married and always wanted women to have freedom or their own business and so on and so forth. Then she might think that there is a third party in her relationship, and she could be like very, very, how should I say that, hurt, which is normal and humane, but then discover that that was not a third party. It was actually something to do with trafficking that may be afflicting her business, her relationship, directly or indirectly. And Beta Persei is exactly the type of planets that would confront us with, hey, everybody wants to, everybody wants to not just virtue signal. People genuinely want there to not be rape, and there's like, oh my God, there are also those implications. Oh, why doesn't this person take any job or take a job? Or here, this job is that because they lost their trust that they would not be hurt in the job, and because they're more susceptible to the harm that other people that do not deal with that might not be as susceptible. And you haven't really done anything to change and make sure what are the credentials that you've shown that your, let's say, workplace is zero rape, and a part of recovery is doing something that is our own creation, our own vision. So this is where we could run into issues. Yes, I don't know which of them works. But this is also how deep and intricate Algol is. and it can look almost unrelenting. I tended to political assassination prevention. One of the cases, at least one of the cases, had something to do with Beta per se. Okay, and oh my God, that only now I think about it, that was when I ran into um, the expandable children projects, the ritual abuse, the extortion cults, and how basically political assassination is created, and the fact that the people that are fearing to be assassinated were also part of this cycle, and the fact that the right to exit violence is kind of intricate. Now, this is where, as the moon is applying to the rebellion, those that use sexual harassment and sexual violence as the form of supposedly presenting themselves as the underdog really collides with something that's way more underdog. And their actions, okay, because Mars is ruling this moon and Lilith, their actions have long-term implications. The behaviors that they could do without it having implications that are long-term. The requirements, if they would have a rite of passage that is a mockery ritual or a shutting up about ritual, that no longer applies, because we understand that in the past people, how should I say that? The people that were swiping that under the rug, and that can be particularly for Gemini ascendants, because Capricorn would be your 8th house. And the people that were swiping under the rug what they had to contend with or shush about, even if they don't like it, now the fact that they complacently, how should I say, that they didn't took action against that, okay, is coming to get them. And this is where the, how should I say that? This is where the people that want to rebel against or consider it playing stance or whatnot, they may run into what Algol sees as making stance, which is not something they want in their lives. One thing not to necessarily look, one transit, I will not, hardly any one of us will be alive, I think, to that, but one transit I'm not looking forward to is Aries conjoining Beta per se. That's, okay. I might do a research on when did that transit occur. We did have Sedna conjoining Beta per se during COVID. And that was the human trafficking campaign that looked like a third party. It was one of the biggest things that took place during COVID. Okay. When something is in hard aspect to Saturn, it can be something that has duration. Okay, if it's like right now Mercury is still separating from the trine, but when Mercury squares Saturn from Mula Nakshatra, Falcon, Read my lips, mark my words, bring in the recording device. It's gonna be for the records. And again, I have midheaven there, so I'm scheduled to have a mishap. It's going to be big and megalithic. Because my midheaven is there, so it's my 10th house. Okay, so I'm very likely to say something. um, One of the things I had, when people don't understand in real time that they're listening to racist songs, and sometimes it's people kind of like, you can't really you can't really explain that to them. And even if you can, they don't really feel like listening. And this is the issue. Right now we have kind of a moment like this where people could be acting up what would definitely cross in other societies, and then there would always be the person that would just be expected to take that. And now it's not happening. They're not only not gonna take that, but they're going to, because, and again, it's not because somebody's doing it by purpose or not. It's kind of like they ran into they ran into a wall, they ran into a threshold. Hey, that won't go with that person. If they're helpless about it, you better bet that once they're not helpless about it, that actually gonna matter. They're actually gonna act on it, even if it's several decades after. And for some people, they're having the implications of things that took part several decades before. When the Me Too came up, I'm telling you, Sun-Venus conjunction, particularly in Mula Nakshatra, when the Me Too came up, a lot of people saying, but back then, they said, why don't people forget about it? Well, if it would change, they would forget about it. I'm not judging Charles Montesquieu for not even imagining that women are also entitled to the right to vote. I am judging people today that say the same while they are at least as irrational as women. I don't claim women are purely rational, but they're not more rational than women. Okay, when women have right to vote, there's no point about talking about Charles. I'm not going to hold it for Charles Montesquieu. I didn't think that. What do I care if I have right to vote, if I have my rights, if I am well fed, well nourished, and so on and so forth? What do I care about Charles Montesquieu so and so centuries ago? Now, I'm telling you, and you know when I'm saying something, where's that on my lot of divination? You know that when I say something, when something's on my lot of divination, it's a prediction. We are going to have again this issue. I don't know if it's like Me Too or what, that people are going to say, but why did they not forget about it? Why did it this? It happened so long ago. Why do they? Because change needs to happen. And what we will see is that people can be, particularly around the squares with Neptune, they can be people increasing their old pattern. And this is where the old patterns are coming to be purged, But because the old patterns are coming, people are not going to feel like they can trust. If people are trying to make business deals, and there has been a certain pattern of behavior that they want to say, okay, we're past that. Peace negotiations, very troubled now. They want to say, okay, we're past that. We gotta drop it. It's kind of like the transit where there is a ceasefire, but then again the pattern of shooting missiles a couple of hours after the ceasefire. It's like, okay, and then again this pattern of trying to do with the same pattern that was trying to, on purpose and provoke, but because the moon and black moon Lilith are opposing Beta Persei, they're trying to provoke over nothing. Nobody cares about, I'm sorry, a person that is mature person trying to do stunts in front of a, I don't know, 12 years old. I hope, okay, Volker, I don't know if this is, I gave example. I don't know if something like this right now is happening, okay? I may have touched on some sore spots, but this is the spirit of the transit. But you see, nobody, how should I say that? And nobody, and it's not the time where people just say, oh yeah, yeah, we know this person that was in the past. Now what happens when the younger generation are imitating the older generation? It's like they're expected to know better. And they're held accountable together with the older generation. So one thing is going to be, people are going to say, but then, and back in the days, back that, but we're going to have a juxtaposition of the new and the old, Mars the new, Saturn the old. It's kind of like, well, that happened so long ago, why do people da. And then it's like, oh, well, last weekend, but it also did that. And because of the square with Neptune, a moon Lilith are trine in Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn and Neptune are telling us to go to the root cause of something, because there lies the answer to change the pattern. It cannot be, people used to, especially in business or even in relationships, they used to swipe things under the rug. Yeah, that. But it's no longer possible. Particularly affected Aries ascendant, because Scorpio is the 8th house. Taurus, because Sagittarius is the 8th house. Gemini, because of Capricorn. Libra ascendant. Nee. That would be 7th house. Oh, Leo ascendant, because Pisces is the 12th house. Pisces the 8th house, sorry. And the things that were like, hey, we don't need to make it a big deal and so on and so forth. Now here's the thing. In the past, people were giving it time. Today, people are aware that in the past they were giving it time. Both Lilith in Scorpio and Uranus in Taurus are pointing at something, and Venus Sun are pointing at it's moving towards sexual sovereignty. What's not is not going to be swiped under the rug. And whatever crosses the threshold of the Smula Nakshatra, and particularly those that were, it also, how should I say that? It brings back the unconscious patterns. The times where people tend to be controlling, tend to move quickly, or come on, come on, come on. No, no, not gonna happen this time. Because it didn't change. That's why. What happens when a person feels helpless? Then what do? They remind the person again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Until either they find a way to enforce that, or there is an implication, particularly to the people that could get away and get away and get away and get away and get away until all three things: Uranus at the end of Taurus, Black Moon Lilith at the end of Scorpio, Venus applying to conjoin Sun, and then all of the planets go into Capricorn, which is the sign of implications. All of them are telling me we're going to have almost a megalithic Me Too crisis. But now, people are going to tend to the root cause of things. The rituals, the wealth consolidation, okay, the religions, the beliefs. Not an easy Christmas, not an easy holidays. We already began to have Hanukkah here, which is a Jewish holiday. The conversations, oh my God. Oh my God. Because there's particular rituals around the holidays. And there are funny moments as well. There's all these people, you know. And people can't talk about when it is a missing Heimnut that her friend also kidnapped, and people from the Ethiopian Jewish community wondering if it's because she's black. It's not about anti-Semitism anymore. People are already talking about the ritual abuse when they talk about the synagogue in Australia. It's impossible to have such an event without insiders that give information volitionally, like, for example, people that were trafficked there, not believed. Okay? So this is holiday season. It's going to be it's kind of, I think about COVID when Sedna was with Beta Per Se, and Israel did the Independence Day, and it had a huge syringe. Gigi Young was talking about this in her series about a cult in plain sight. I was just looking at everything looked like China. And I was just looking at that, and my mother was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And I was like, oh, it is looking like China of Mao. Now, for China of Mao, you need to live in a rural area because there You could have an altar of the leader because he would be so benevolent. Not so good in the city. And again, probably it was some sort of karma that people had with their regime and so on and so forth. Okay, we can't say Mao without saying what were people practices which we don't know that brought to the rising of Mao. Yes, I had an argument like this. The people that were okay voting for Adolf Hitler in the 30s, because they were okay with having 50% of the workplace evacuated because women would be back in the kitchen poisoning the husband. Now, if I was ever in the kitchen, one couldn't blame me for poisoning the husband. I could just be trying something new with herbs. So, I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy preparing salves from unknown plants. I'm just saying it's not exactly tradwife. And there would need to be a zero emission aircraft waiting for me when I get sick of gardening. No one has to be authentic. If I just painted the image of, I will be if I was the type of person who was compatible to being a witch in the forest, then I would be a witch in the forest. But no. Now, all the signs, all the omens are pointing at the big Me Too crisis that has a flavor of occultism to it. Vulcan with Uranus conjoining significant placements. Okay, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, Midheaven. I'm bracing myself. There's a lot of families next to. Or Midheavens at the end of Scorpio. That would be Sun, Moon, Ascendants. Yeah, so Ascendant Scorpios being. How should I say that? Being called to honor sexual sovereignty in spirit and in matter. And occult practice. Pisces, Sun, Moon, Ascendants, Midheavens. You could be the ones that are, how should I say, because Saturn and Neptune is so close, then the Pisces placements could be both the recipient of these restrictions, rules, regulations, and so on, but also those that are playing the Saturn role. And here it's the type of person that they have understood how they need to limit their own freedom in order to sustain, and they are restricting the others. Or because they are restricted, it creates restrictions over those that were trying to restrict them. That's the dual nature of Pisces. You try to enslave a Pisces, you become a slave. Or you try to, with Pisces, this is all Sextile and Sedna. So one of the stories of Sedna is that her father wanted to find her a match. She didn't want anyone, and he said, "Okay, go live with the dog, sleep in a tent." And she was happy. He wanted to punish her from his pride. She was happier. Whether it's because she was rebellious or because she just found this setting less constricting. Now, particularly explosive are the types where the older generation or the people that behave like the old ways do care or trying to settle something or bring something to end, but the way that they do that is sparking up, and that can be a little bit of a last straw type of situation. No, there aren't any. Okay, it can be a little bit of a last straw type of situation because they can bring about the anger in the way that they try to tend to things, particularly those who try to rush a Taurus, and they can be Taurian themselves. Don't rush a Taurus. That's the Uranus. Any limitation to the freedom, okay, of the Sag needs to show them greater freedom. Okay, if there is a limitation that you absolutely must put on a Sag placement, better if you show them how, and that has to be authentic. How is that limitation actually contributing to what their soul quest is calling for? Now, it has to be authentic. If it's not authentic, it's not going to be. Okay, for example, and here's the thing, Sagittarius is very benevolent. The placement of Sagittarius itself. Now, it's also deeply transformative. It's the Jupiter that comes after Scorpio. People think Sagittarius is superficial. It's absolutely not. Why? Because it's deeply philosophical. So they think, oh, it's deeply philosophical. It's not something that can be applied. Well, that depends. Because eventually, with Sagittarius, sooner or later we find out that we have to apply. Okay, I'll give example. I have 10th house Sagittarius, Uranus in the 10th house, Ketu, and Ketu, by the way, in the 10th house, if those people prepare for retirement sooner than later, or God forbid, prepare to die, it's because they know Ketu matures at 48, and the 10th house Ketu, it's purging off a status, career, being public figure. And so they could either be reliant on career, but at the same time they can have this non-attachment that can make them actually be incredibly successful very quickly. And successful is not just in money or something like that. They can come to high achievements, particularly philosophically or spiritually, and particularly with Ketu, because they have this non-attachment. They both lean on the Ketu, but they're also not attached because they've been there before. And these type of people can also prepare for the time when they are in a high position, because they were accustomed to be in a high position. And now they're purging that, so there's something that is even happy to let go of the physical manifestation of, let's say, being a public figure. For some, it can have to do with parenting or parents. Now, what do I mean by, let's say, Uranus Sag? Way before Gen Zers arrived, when I first saw how the challenges in workplaces, that everything is corrupt, the value is not authentic, then people around me were thinking I'm living in utopia. But essentially, it brought crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. Even if it didn't seem like something that is applicable, eventually people have to align. And this is something that's very true to a lot of, for example, there was a person in my life when I did What Expand Upon Cooling that, if social engineers were right, had Sun in Sagittarius. And he did reality check to me because I did not know anything about true crime. Nothing. It was just Uranus crossing my 22nd degree, and I was just saying, okay, I will tend to true crime, the astrology of true crime, because I was concerned about this transit. And then this person came in energy, and they tried to explain. Then at first he wasn't mad, and so on and so forth. And then I understood. I was like, okay, the penny dropped. And I was like, oh. And indeed, that person was correct. But also something that I said regarding real estate and jurisdiction, probably correct. Okay, some people. Okay, and this is the thing about Sagittarius placements. This is also why, with the crisis that we have right now, when everything is squaring and so on and so forth, eventually we'll have to apply that. And if Lilith in 29 degrees Scorpio is talking about whatever Lilith is mentioning now about sexual sovereignty, in Sagittarius, it would be even deeper, because, well, Sagittarius is so optimistic because it went through the transformation of Scorpio. It's, how should I say that? Almost unavoidable. Okay, I think about, I don't remember when Venus went through Scorpio. Yes, I really don't remember. There's so many planets going through Scorpio. And right now, Mercury is on my Ketu in Sagittarius. So however much Mercury was deep in Scorpio, in Sagittarius, even more profound. Because Sagittarius cannot be challenged after it's been through the fire of Scorpio, or the deep water of Scorpio. And I invite us all to think about what's the one thing regarding where there's Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, And now, Black Moon Lilith, or even the moon that's about to oppose Uranus, what's that one thing that, having gone through the transformation in Scorpio, you know that in Sagittarius you would not be easily challenged, and even if you would be, you would sustain. And each and every one of us has a point like that.
לקוחות יקרים, נא לא להשאיר עגלות עם השגחה, מאחר ואלו מפוזרות לעובדי החנות. המשך קנייה בהנאה.
Somebody did a stunt for me in energy yesterday. Okay? And it brought up a certain pattern. That they know me psychologically, and it brought a certain pattern. And here is the thing. This is where, if you do that, this happens. You know what happens when this happens. It's like, yeah, if you do that, this happens. It's true. When this happens, you know what. Now, they really needed emotional support today. So they did that. So they brought this pattern. And they know that every time they bring this pattern, it creates a ripple of problems in the real estate. And regarding realtors. And they also know that those that participate in this pattern with them are getting a harsher and harsher rejection. Which I know that they probably don't enjoy, but let's just say it's cruel to everyone equally. Now, yeah, there are some people that do certain things and you're like, okay, I don't know what to do about it. And here is the thing, they were caught in a situation that they don't know what to do about that. It's this and when I watch Annika Lucas. Everything conspires so that I will fall asleep if I watch. Anyway, more things that I can say about this current transit. The big intensity is also from the Moon and Lilith sextile in Pluto. And Pluto in degree 2, which I said is going to have to do with relations, values. Pluto is a point of Thales remediating, and because we have 2b sextiles in the sky and the grand trine still, how should I say that? It's not necessarily a new beginning, but for things that are set to completion, there's a lot of protection about what's set to completion. Now, good thing, bad thing, who knows? Okay? I don't see Aldebaran so involved here, so it's not like a Pyrrhus win or something like that. I don't necessarily see it in that way. It's just that they will have to live with what they have completed. Okay? Kind of like good thing or bad thing. I think about, for example, I remember when my mother became almost vegan because of me. Until today, I deal with this problem. I was in high school. We had an argument about a toast in Paris that was so tasty, and then it had ham. And she said, well, it's not kosher. And I said, well, it's animal in any way. Then we had an argument, and I decided that I'm going to try to be vegetarian because I didn't even know such a thing as vegan exists. And then I worked 4 years in McDonald's being vegetarian. Which later would be working for a credit card company without having credit card. Also, I think 2 years, almost 2 years. And then I did a TA of filmmaking, editing, without being a part of extortion cult. It was for high school students. That's how it was possible. But that is so. This is true. So, good things that in the passage of time I'm glad I completed. Probably the essays I wrote for my first degree and second degree. They are foundations for everything that I talk about. That's what are your resources? Like, well, I can refer you to the university that may or may not have tried to erase my academic work, which only proves something. So now we have another, with the moon closing the cycle towards the new moon. Then we have, particularly today and these coming hours, something is set to completion. And for most cases, it probably will complete. What it is it good, is it not? And just like in the examples that I gave, it's going to force us to live with the consequences. They can be good consequences. They can be not good consequences, but we'll have to kind of live with that. Jupiter will soon square Chiron, sensitive time. Vulcan who need to fly, military affiliated, people that are set to fly. I will need to do separate video because this is for the time that Jupiter will be on the 22nd degree squaring Chiron. Bankers that are real estate founders that are set to. Okay, because Jupiter is something big. Chiron is a wound around assassination. Jupiter is flight. Saturn, Jupiter trines Saturn, so Saturn is something that is separating from trine to Saturn, is something that is somebody has to travel, somebody has to fly. Yes, Mars will go through Capricorn, Aquarius. So this is something to do with a hierarchy, mountains, science, even astrology. Oh, another thing. The rule of having a second consultation prior to a reading regarding electional astrology or something very important that is astrological reading also applies both whether you have consultation with person. Always take more than one opinion. I've had world-renowned astrologers, not only their fault, as if I sent something during Mercury retrograde, given me something that was valuable but was not exactly what I asked. It happens to all of us. This also applies if you work with, how should I say that, something like AI astrology or something like that. Probably they can be good sources. They're basically plagiarizing astrologers, so there isn't a reason why it wouldn't be good information. Okay. And I talked about the fact that except for me and maybe some young astrologers, most of that field was bordering Epstein, if not MK Often, which is another sickness. And so kind of like the field had it coming, like many other fields. Okay, psychology, psychiatry, and so on, medicine, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of it's not like, oh, sorry, I'm one of the few astrologers that talked about the MK Often and so on. But make sure you have answers for more than one program when it is regarding the travel questions and elections around Chiron Jupiter squaring on the 22nd. Okay, I know Nicola Stojanovic knew the 22nd degree. There are many other delineations, okay? So there are the lots, and there are the this, and there are the that, and that is, there are many other significations to consider. Usually they all paramount, they all come together when we have an actual event. Okay, I have been taking a break from doing cold cases for obvious reasons. But I have addressed the things that were needed to be addressed. Again, this one can also be because Chiron is the wounded healer. I'll be honest with you, when Sun was 22ing, and then we had the Moon 22ing. Okay, Sun was 22ing, yeah, and then we had the Moon 22ing in Libra. Then we had 3 megalithic events, okay? West, East, Australia, Brown, the synagogue, and the assassination of a general in Hamas. It didn't escalate as much, but there was a big fear that it would escalate. And so that involved Chiron, okay? So, but the other aspect of Chiron is that we can curate the wound around assassination. It might be solved cases. Again, I think Lilith is going to be out of Scorpio, so we're not going to have like cold cases. But it can be an attempt that is prevented because we've made the a good reasoning after previous attempts and so on. And yet the square from Jupiter it can be a failed attempt, but we can expect there to be issues. Mm, mm. Yes, Venus will be 22ing, I think, in 2-3 days. So she will be trining Chiron. That is a bit more risky because it's an agreement. Okay, we had with the moon opposing Chiron, which was a manifesting aspect, in Sun 22, which was agreement with the moon and agreement with Chiron, we had a global. So Venus 22 in agreement with Chiron, and she's ruled by Jupiter that squares Chiron, can be an issue here. So those events might be verdicts and revolutions. For example, The Hague rejected Israel's demand to be notified on what procedures will be taken against Israel. Okay? It's basically there is a limit to how much extortion courts can achieve. Okay? So, this is Mars in Capricorn. Now, again, I'm not saying that a lot of people didn't prepare for this moment, but definitely there were people that thought that this moment will never be. Okay? I can say, yeah, if they listen to me, they'll know they don't have a mention in Gaza and so on and so forth. But hey, why would they listen to me? You know, it's kind of like. So now, and also, I'm just another person. I can have predictions that are born out and predictions are not born out as any other person. Usually, when something's on my lot of divination, it tends to have something that correlates to that. But yes. So again, the entire Hague scenario was the reason that the war was. Like, if people don't understand it just yet. Those that saw the omens in 2019 or even earlier saw the omens. Those that didn't. It's a part of the entire thing from going from regional to global. And it has its good and bad aspects. That's just life. But this is a beginning of something where, how should I say that? We're going to see that there is an expiration, a deadline for what extortion cults can achieve. And that would also mean, yes, certain things to do with jurisdiction. Well, Saturn Neptune can be tax evasion by meaning of a financial crisis or tax relief. A lot of, okay. After the subprime crisis, people expected slavery, but found tax relief.